It is remarkable how much and yet how little has changed in the church from the time of the early church. Nearly 2,000 years after the letter to the Hebrews was written, every pastor today can identify with what the writer says in today's reading from the daily lectionary. From the basic teachings of the church to the reality of once faithful members losing their passion and fading away from church life, to the eagerness of some to grow in their faith, it's all here. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Wednesday, January 17th, 2024. The writer of this letter aims to elevate his congregation's understanding of the faith. Not content to take the easy road, which would have been to simply comfort his weary flock and not challenge them, he intends to cajole them into plumbing the depths of Christian faith, and specifically plumbing the depths of the priestly office of Jesus Christ. Yesterday, we saw our writer use a bit of reverse psychology to motivate his congregation to pay attention to his teaching. Today, he continues his efforts to motivate, this time by complimenting them on their faithfulness. The first step in this process is to remind them what they have already learned, things that by now should be second nature to them. And what he says sounds familiar to anyone who has been introduced to Christian faith. Therefore, let us go on toward perfection, he begins, leaving behind the basic teaching about Christ and not laying again the foundation, repentance from dead works and faith toward God, instruction about baptisms, laying on of hands, resurrection of the dead, and eternal judgment. Repentance, baptism, joining the church, beliefs about resurrection and eternal judgment, these are things we still talk about today, even if we don't use quite the same language. Repenting and turning to God, reorienting one's life from worldly concerns to pleasing God in all we say and do. Baptism, whether as a child or as an adult, which is the mark of our cleansing from sin and of our inclusion in the community of faith. The laying on of hands, which, along with baptism, signifies one's commissioning as a disciple of Jesus Christ, though it's a rite which we don't practice today, except in the ordination of officers. And of course, the belief in the resurrection of the dead, which is certainly central to our faith, and a final judgment when Christ returns, as we say each week, quote, to judge the quick and the dead. But these are just the basics, things taught to all newcomers to the faith. The writer of the letter to the Hebrews is anxious not to have to repeat these lessons, but to prompt his congregation to learn deeper meanings of the faith. His motivational tool this time is to contrast their faith, which, though it has been waning, has really maintained. They are not the others in the church who learned the basics, joined the church, but who faded into the woodwork and ultimately left the church. He assures them that they are not like them, even if, in reality, some among them were likely headed for the exits as well. Every pastor knows this phenomenon. I keep lists each year of people who have joined our church. When I read back over these lists years later, it never ceases to amaze and sadden me how many just drifted away. Obviously, there are some who moved away or even joined other churches in town, but there are many who just lost any sense of real connection with the church. These are the ones the writer of the letter to the Hebrews contrasts with his core congregation, the faithful ones. Mindful that his words might be perceived as harsh, he reassures his congregation with these words of comfort and encouragement, saying, "Even though we speak in this way, beloved, we are confident of better things in your case, things that belong to salvation. For God is not unjust. He will not overlook your work and the love that you showed for his sake in serving the saints, as you still do. And we want each one of you to show the same diligence so as to realize the full assurance of hope to the very end, so that you may not become sluggish, but imitators of those who through faith and patience inherit the promise." And the source of his encouragement and comfort? The faithfulness of God, who will not overlook even their feeble attempts to maintain and grow their faith. It is this faithfulness of God that is the foundation of our faith, rather than our own imperfect efforts, which is the theme of tomorrow's passage, where he lifts up Abraham as a model of faith for them to imitate. We'll pick up there tomorrow. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.